Hello and welcome again to my guest interview series. Today I will be featuring an interview that I did over Skype with Melody, who is one of the Five Browns. And the Five Browns, if you don't know them, are a wonderful performing group. They play piano, all five of them, and they tour the world and share the wonderful music with the world. So if you haven't seen them, then you should actually just click in the description box and see their music videos first, then come back and hear this interview that I did with Melody. They are so wonderful, and I'm very grateful for the time that she spent at answering my questions and sharing with me her advice and her experiences. So thank you, Melody, and thank you, Five Browns, for taking the time to let me ask you some questions. If you'd like to see the questions that I asked her, go ahead and click in the description box, and you can actually click on the links that lead directly to her answers to my 8 questions. With that, I hope you enjoy this interview, and if you have any questions, please like, comment, and subscribe. We'll start with the first question. When did you and your siblings first start filming YouTube music videos and other online platforms? So can you kind of talk me through that process?
Well, actually, we started with the whole music video process back when we were recording with Sony. And so this is going to age us, but we've been around for a while. We've actually been touring for 15 years. So when we first came on the scene, Sony really believed in back in the day. There was the technology called the dual disc. So on one side was the music, and on the other side were music videos. And so, and that was all the rage right when we came on the scene. And so they put a ton of effort and financial expense into making these videos. So the first videos we did were out on the Salt Flats in Utah, in the Bonneville Salt Flats, and then also in a hangar in Windovers. And those, both of those, that was the Firebird on the Salt Flats and the Copeland's Shaker Hymn. Simple Gifts, and then we also did in the hangar in Wendover a music video with Rhapsody in Blue. So those 3 videos were kind of our first with Sony, and we've kind of been making videos ever since. It's just sort of changed. We've changed our format and how we work them.
Amazing. What have you found to be, I guess, the most helpful technological tool or platform for you as a performer? Or did you ever start taking more personal control or creative control as an artist?
Oh, totally. In the beginning with Sony, obviously, like they were taking control of everything, and we had a lot of say in so much, which was nice. Everything down to where things were filmed and certain shots and just stylistically how everything looked. So they gave us a lot of freedom that way. But as we kind of feel like, and I talk about this a lot when I lecture, we feel like we sort of saw the Berlin Wall fall in the music industry and in the record industry specifically. We kind of saw when classical labels were still classical labels, and now they're kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different types of music kind of under the guise of classical music. And so we sort of saw all of that change, and a lot of that bothered us at that time. So we ended up taking on much more of a role in our own video making and in our own recording and in our own, just so that we could have control over our own brand. And so that's kind of what we've been doing for the past probably 5 years is kind of just really taking hold of our own group and what we wanted to say and to show people. And so, yes, a lot of the videos are now coming from our realm. So everything that you've seen in the past 5 years has been specifically produced and everything by us.
Do you feel like it's because of the advancement in technology and how accessible it is? Or do you feel like it's because you guys have more experience, or is it kind of an all-encompassing picture?
It is kind of all encompassing. I think we have some very close friends, the Anderson Row duo, and you may be familiar with a lot of their YouTube videos. They were some of the first classical musicians to really hit the YouTube scene hard, and remain truly classical. And so I kind of have been watching them and talking with them for a while. They're literally our best friends from Juilliard. And so I would see what they were doing. And I always kind of in the back of my head would think, I'm like, oh my gosh, there might be a time where I have to take more of this on and do more of the production side. And it seemed super intimidating because, coming from Sony and these massive productions where they would spend just hundreds of thousands of dollars on a video shoot, and suddenly you're like, okay, no, we need to be able to do this on an extreme budget, and we need to be much more techy ourselves. It became really challenging. But when I saw what Anderson Rowe were doing, they were putting out really high quality videos. It kind of gave me hope, and I would talk to Greg, and he would do so much of the production himself, and so he would kind of talk me through some things and be like, no, you could totally like handle this if you really wanted to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the problem is, do I really want to? We can have our hands full with touring, performing, and just our lives outside of music. And yeah, it's tough to kind of dive right into that. But I do feel like, as the recession came on in 2007, 8, that we really did have to become more hands-on to really keep our group in the scene.
Wow. I mean, do you guys bring your own video crew in whenever you tour places or go places? What is like the system that you guys have for video production now?
Oh my goodness. I wish that we could take a crew everywhere we went, And actually when we toured Beijing, it was really nice because they had a crew following us. And so a lot of times when we tour Asia, they do have these crews that follow us. Sometimes I don't know where the footage ends up. We should probably be a lot more hands-on on where that ends up. Because a lot of times they are filming like right when we get off the airplane. We also toured Russia this past spring, and they were also filming. And when they start filming, we're always like, oh my gosh, we just got off like, this, 15-hour flight, and we're just so tired. So we're like, how do I look? But sometimes they'll let us know where that footage is, or they'll post to it in their own social media. But a lot of times it's just kind of like on their own channels. And I know from Moscow, they were filming us a lot. And it ended up on, one of their news programs and stuff. So we post a little bit of that on our social media. But as far as our YouTube channels, we kind of just keep it more geared towards the videos. But I think it's a great idea. We could open it up, expand it more of what tour life looks like.
That's very cool. I think it was nice that you mentioned that classically trained musicians don't always post on YouTube, right? Like one of probably the most amazing, famous performers in the world, they don't necessarily run their own YouTube channels, right? So what's, I guess, your view on YouTube as a platform for performers like me? What do you think the future is for pianists? Do you think it's an effective tool?
Oh my goodness, that is the kind of the line in the musician verbiage these days. I know Mitsuko Uchida had a quote that was like, what is this social media? Why do we need to know what people are eating today? And all this stuff. And she kind of put down the whole idea of social media being a platform to be used by serious artists. And so it is a very difficult line, but I feel like with the new generation coming up, it's expected of us. It's actually expected at labels, at management, I know our management's always like, okay, have you guys been keeping up with your social media? It is something expected now. And a lot of the older, more established artists, they're very lucky that they don't have to be, showing what they ate today. But I also think it's extremely useful. And I talk about this a lot when I've done some lecturing on entrepreneurship, and I think it's a really, really key tool for musicians today. I mean, just look at some of the musicians that have kind of fallen into this classical crossover group, like the Piano Guys or Lindsey Sterling, and they have just this massive following, and that was all because they put themselves out there and they really just went for it. The same with our friends Anderson and Rowe. They used YouTube at a time where a lot of people weren't. Same with like the piano guys, and they got themselves skyrocketed into the industry by doing that. And I think now, as those groups have even been around, like, gosh, it's got to be almost 10 years now. So now for those coming into it, they have to even carve a greater niche for themselves, which is difficult. So you have to figure out what could be original or new for you. And I do feel like as you kind of sort of look at the vast array of YouTube accounts and what people are doing, you kind of do get a sense of, oh, what could I do differently, especially for classical music. I know I was talking with my brother Gregory yesterday about this. We were looking through some of your questions.
Oh, good.
He was saying, he's like, what would be really interesting is having an account that, yes, could help be a tool for either teaching or for performing, but also that linked or showed different videos of the greatest artists, that people you have to kind of search for them through the online stratosphere. There's so many videos, but it's just finding something that's original and different that attracts people to your channel on it in a different way. Because what's been done on YouTube, if you keep doing the same thing, people are not going to listen. They're not going to pay attention to your channel. See, and that's where we kind of are a little bit different, just because we do stuff on 5 pianos like nobody does that. So as long as you're trying to find an original way to go about social media, I think you'll have success.
That's amazing. What do you guys hope? Who do you hope to reach through your videos? And I guess what's your overall philosophy as a group?
I think it's the same philosophy that we've taken on with our performing. For 15 years, we've always believed that classical music does not have to just attract an older generation. There's so many musicians who are young, taking all sorts of different lessons and different instruments. And I think more than any other generation before, I think the newest generations coming up are kind of looking at classical musician without this, without the sort of the trappings that previous generations have seen it to be. It's now just another type of music on your iPhone. So we feel very strongly that it doesn't have to be branded as just classical music. It's a lot of people actually are thinking of it as the new sort of easier listening type of music. They'll turn to the classical stations when they're just like stressed out or just need a little bit of breathing time, because it does allow sort of that reflection and sometimes peace, but also sometimes just like, the greatest victory and triumph in music. And I think a lot of the new generations of just people in general are looking at classical music differently. And so we hope to attract that on YouTube as well, just something fun, something different. To take orchestral scores and put them into pianos is just so different, but it's also very fun. So a lot of times people will write in asking, oh, where's the score? We would love to play this with our group of pianists. And so that's kind of fun to see that other people want to do it because it looks fun, and it is. It's fun to play in a chamber music group with multiple pianos.
So last 2 questions. Do any of you teach?
Yes, we all have had our time teaching at different points. It's difficult because we run such hectic schedules. So I have a really good friend I've known since 12 years ago, and I actually met here in Utah, and she started having kids a lot before we ever got into that realm. And she has 3 daughters, and she was like, can you please teach my daughters? And I wasn't taking any students at the time. I've had a studio in the past, but it's just too difficult to keep it going with the tour schedule. And so I was like, okay, I will take you guys on if you're okay with my schedule. And And she's like, yes, yes. So it started out with just her one daughter, but then she had more. So now I've got 3 of her daughters. And I'm not going to lie, it is super difficult to schedule. And a lot of times we do end up having to do Skype lessons. I know we were trying to match up when I was international, and that gets really, really difficult because time differences, and I'm teaching it late at night, she's in the morning. It's just it gets really, really challenging. But yes, and then my brother Gregory, he is on faculty at the Levine School in DC, and Deandra teaches privately, and Desi used to have a massive studio in New York, but since having kids, she just cannot keep that schedule. So she ended up having to give all of her students to a friend. So yes, it's difficult to do, but it is still another passion of ours, because we do like to be able to see the next generation coming up and being well trained.
Yeah, I've always wondered if Skype lessons are effective because I've never started, but you've had experience teaching over Skype. What do you think about that?
It has its pros and cons. The pros are obviously we get a lesson, which is nice, because there will be 3 weeks gone by, and these poor kids are just like waiting for their lesson. And I'm like, okay, let's just do it by Skype. So it's nice that we're able to. The hardest thing is that unless you're set up technically on both ends to be able to do that on a regular basis, it becomes difficult. So if they're like just off of their phone and I'm just off of my phone, and you're just based off of what your Wi-Fi capability is, it becomes very difficult, because if it goes out on my end, and we've had this, Deandra a lot of times will teach by Skype when we're in the middle of nowhere, like driving through Arizona or something. And she's like, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. So it can get really, really tough when Wi-Fi goes out, or when you can't hear, or when there's glitches, And I'm sure you're getting it with me right now, because not all Wi-Fi is created equally.
It's okay. What advice do you have for other piano performers and teachers and students?
I think that's a great question, and it's hard to advise, because each person kind of has to like sort of create their own path. But I do see so many successful musicians who have created their own path, that it is kind of just like awe-inspiring just to see what they've been able to do. I think where you're starting is like a really good place to start, because you're getting yourself out there and doing it in a way that maybe hasn't been done before. I think interviewing different artists is a great platform to kind of go about things. And so advice on just in general, I think I've talked about this a lot, but finding more of an original path to sort of showcase yourself. I know that's really difficult as classical musicians, because we've been taught to just play our repertoire and go out on a stage and it's done. We get the applause and that's it. But it's so much more than that to get ourselves out there these days. I've talked a lot with different artists about even down to programming. And we had a professor actually at Juilliard who would say this a lot. He's like, yeah, he's like, if you want to go and record all the, Mozart sonatas, that would definitely, put you on the map. So I feel like there is programming that can even do it. We also had a friend at school that was later signed by Sony. And the reason he was an attraction was because of the way he went about programming. And he would get written up in the New York Times and stuff, because he would pit like Mozart, one movement of a Mozart sonata against like a Ligeti etude. And so, and he would do them all in these hour programs, and they'd be shorter programs, but they'd be so well thought through and original, that it drew people in, especially in that very high elitist realm. I think programming is really key, and how you program. Other people have decided that, going more into a crossover realm and doing, arrangements of different things will help put them on the map. That's another way of doing it through programming. Um, you have to really think outside the box. I feel like I think that's the toughest part of being a musician today, is finding that niche. And I know for some, they've gone and performed in lounges and places where maybe classical music is not usually recognized. And it really just takes really innovative thought. I know with every entity, every orchestra, Utah Symphony, all these different symphonies around the country, they're all trying to find the way to bring classical music out of the concert hall and into different areas that maybe people don't think classical music belongs.
That's really good advice. I feel like that's very, very helpful, and I'm so grateful that you were willing to meet with me today. Like, I reached out and I was like, okay, she's probably not. I mean, they're probably not going to even respond, but I'm very grateful, and so thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. Yeah, when we had the email through the management, we were like, "Oh yeah, we've all been there." No, I think it's incredible what you're doing, and I actually got the chance to listen to some of your playing, and you're a fabulous musician. So yes, all power to you in the future. And I know, because you're already so innovative in what you're trying to do, I really think that you'll find a place. So good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
All right.